All right.
Okay. All right.
Hey. So what are we talking about today? You got the list over there.
We are talking about how to live with an open heart.
Look at what I just did. I went like that. I didn't even realize
Open.
what I did. Open. I'm
And
open.
I was just, yes. So I was gonna say, um, yeah, that's a nice body posture
Posture,
to have.
right? Yeah. I didn't even
Open
realize. Yeah.
versus
Versus like this,
having it
right?
closed off.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, open heart, open body posture, being open
Yeah.
to love.
Yeah. Being open to love. Open to love, especially in a world that really doesn't make much room or space for that. So you have to learn how to do it, for yourself. And I feel like know who to open your heart to, right? Because we've gone through that, we've discussed that. That's been a part of our journey, right? And it's important. It's super important.
Absolutely.
And to know when to self-protect as well, too. So yeah, I know that you have been on your open heart journey for a little while, right?
A little while, little while, and quite a few years
Yes, yes.
where it was after you've been hurt
Mhm.
time and time again, having an open heart and that open, receiving, you hope to receive anyway, that posture of openness and receiving love and giving out love.
Mhm.
I came to a point where it was like, okay, I can't do this anymore.
Mhm.
And what then happens is you close up and you guard your heart and you lock it away and you don't let anybody in. And eventually I guess you could say I started to get a hard heart.
Mhm.
And it came a point where it just wasn't natural to me to walk around with this hard hidden love. It's hard for me to hide my love and I don't want to hold it to myself. I want to share it, but knowing, like you said, being not knowledgeable enough about who you are, who to share it with. And I think I just came to a point quite a few years ago where I made a active decision and I committed to having an open heart. And it actually, I think I made that decision and commitment without labeling it that. And where the open heart came from in a more concrete way was ring shopping, where I found myself, I've been engaged,
Mhm.
never married, and I had to take that ring off. And it was one that I had chosen that I loved. And then in a relationship, you start getting promise rings. And when the relationship doesn't work out, you got to get rid of the ring again. So I came to a point where I made a commitment to myself. And when I went and bought a ring, almost like a promise ring, and it ended up being a promise ring for myself, it was with the intent of not having to get rid of it. But if I wanted to, I could. But it wasn't like, oh, the relationship ended and now I have to get rid of this ring
Mhm.
because the relationship with me would never end. So I could always wear this ring. And it just so happens that the ring that I purchased was the Open Heart collection, which I fell in love with, for obvious reasons.
Yes.
And I would venture to say that was probably the day that I committed fully to this open heart concept for myself. Like, um, and originally it was to have an open heart posture, no matter how hurt I got, no matter how many heartaches, heartbreaks I received, to not allow that past pain to lock my heart up or keep me from giving and receiving love. And it was in spite of even a new hurt to promise that I will remain open-hearted. Um, and that was kind of like the beginning of my open heart journey. And I think, you know, I had moments where I wanted to close off and lock it away again, but I did it in a way that was, um, I guess you can say, where it was still open hearted, but not just haphazard about it. Um, I think you speak about this, where you say, you speak about like expansion versus, what did you say, open, closed heart gate,
Yes.
where you're able to protect. I'll let you speak on that. But
Yeah.
that's kind of, when you describe it that way, it was, I protected my heart, but I didn't close it off and hide it anymore. I remain to this day open to receive and give love.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. I love that. There's so much to like learn, I think, from your experience, and especially, as women, right? Doing it for yourself is important, you know. So I'm so very proud of you for doing that. I was, with you throughout and shared and stuff. And it's interesting because we're always like yin yang, very like opposite sides of the same coin, right? And for me, my issue was just having this heart that was just open, and not protecting it enough when I should. And I paid dearly for that many, many times. Just I had to grow to learn that I was worth protecting, that somebody else and their feelings aren't more important than mine, that mines are just as important. And
Yeah.
um, part of that journey was actually over the past few years, as you were going through the open heart, was doing acupuncture. That was one thing. So
Mm.
with the meridians, the Chinese medicine, they talk about the your heart gate being open and closed, but knowing when to do that healthily, right? Knowing when to give and receive love and when to basically, protect yourself. And you brought up relationship and you brought up a ring. And I thought that was so interesting because in that moment I heard share this and I was like, I don't want to share this. But um, I've been engaged as well too, never
Mhm.
married. And the first time that I was engaged, without getting into the whole story, because it's a story, girl.
That's always a story.
Always a story.
Story.
Um, this person, um, basically, they left. And after a few months, I took off my ring because I said, well, I guess they're not, like this is on its way out the door. And one day
Okay.
I went to I went to work and the person happened to come back and decided to take that ring because I didn't have it on,
Your engagement ring.
right? To take my engagement ring. And they wound up giving it to another person.
Mm.
So I didn't want to
Wow.
share that, I think for obvious reasons, very, very personal. But um, that was something I had to learn from in my early 20s, right? Because I had to, forgive that person, but I also most of all, more importantly, had to forgive myself,
Yeah.
you know. And so that's an example of what, especially in my 20s, not protecting my heart enough, right? Because when I look at that situation and the engagement, I knew that the engagement was kind of going down the drain, especially
Okay.
if somebody leaves, for months at a time. So
Yeah.
I think that's something as women that sometimes we need to get a little bit better at, especially when we're younger, right? Being honest, with ourselves about what we see and what a person is doing, whether this person is for you or not, you know? Um, and I think ultimately asking yourself, are you on your own team? You know?
Mm.
So now, fast forward 20 years later, yeah, your girl don't play, right? I've learned how to close my heart gate and not in a way to like,
Shut people
shut people
out,
out.
but
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
like shut them out, but in a way of like, no, you don't get to pass go. Mm-mm.
yeah,
You need to show me more than
absolutely.
that, or just even intuitively knowing that, right? And following. Because when I think back, and I know you could speak to this, how many times intuitively as a woman did you know that you
You know,
know that you know
you
that you know,
know,
or you knew that
as
you
I,
you knew, right? And you're like, no, and the ifs, when you start with that mess, that means that it's a no, right? So, that was, I kind of wanted to like give that as an example just to show like another side to like this open heart, because I think it's very important to live with an open heart. And I tend to live in that space,
Mhm.
you know. Um, but it's not always easy navigating in this world. So you really do need to protect yourself. It's important as well too. So you learn that protection piece,
Yes,
even in when you talk about your heart being hardened, that was like automatic self-protection.
yeah. And it was and I think when I realized it was more of a defense mechanism than, or like maybe even a survival mode, um,
Mhm.
I realized that that wasn't really what I wanted. I didn't want to live like that in love. I wanted to live in love in a way that, again, I had access to receive it, because at that time I had decided, for example, you mentioned being honest with yourself.
Mhm.
And so at that time, I decided to be honest with myself and say, okay, what's working? What's not working? And more than that, more than looking at what someone else has done, to your point of the forgiving yourself, I was honest with myself about the circumstances and the situation that I had been in. And I knew I wanted something different. And so I had to take, like you, time to sit, be honest with myself, look at where I made the decision, whether the, person was right or wrong. At the end of the day, I made those decisions. So
Mhm.
making sure that I took time to forgive myself. And like I said, gift myself, if you will, this ring and make a promise to myself. And really one that I did not want to break, because if I went through all this trouble of, when you're honest with yourself, the truth hurts.
Girl, does it?
And you don't have anybody to point the finger at. So you
Nope.
now have to go and say, now I have to take time to forgive myself, like you said, and make a decision to move forward, um, lovingly toward myself.
Mm.
And much of the beginning of that journey was self love, learning again how to love myself, how to take care of myself, how to heal myself, how to rebuild myself all by myself. Okay.
Mhm.
And when you're by yourself, and so to that point, I was very single and very celibate. So I had really cut off, and not in a closed heart way. If
Mhm.
there was someone who was, loving towards me, or I wanted to build a relationship with me, the gate, if you will, was open to do that.
Mhm.
But it was very much more protected. It was like, okay, access is going to take some time because of all the work I've put
Mhm.
in to myself.
Mhm.
Um, you're going to have to come in, let's say, honest with yourself.
Mhm.
You're going to have to come in forgiving of yourself. because at the age and stage that I'm now at, or at the time and up till now, is different. You know, when you're in your 20s, you can play around a little bit, you can take your time, you can make mistakes. And I think for me, it was like, if I've done this work on myself, as you see, I'm heart postured, you know, if
Mhm.
I've done this work on myself, I'm going to protect my heart. And that is biblical, guard your heart, because if you have not done that kind of honest talk with yourself and self forgiveness, you know, you may not understand me and the journey that I've gone on to become open hearted, to let that gate open. And I just knew that it was important to allow those in who, at the very least, understood the work that I had done. And in order to truly understand the work that I have done, you would also have to understand the pain that I have gone through. And like you said, there's always a story.
Always a story, yeah.
And I think I didn't need to tell you my whole story in detail for you to understand it. But you would have to have the willingness and the open heart. So you see, what I'm saying is you have to match in some capacity, because if you haven't done the work and you haven't done the, you know, that you see that gap, there's a space between that's keeping us apart, where if you've done your work and you've, you know, and at the very least we could talk about it, we can come together with an understanding. And I think that in order for me to continue this open heart journey, I knew I had to get and be around people, friends, lovers, all that had to have at least an understanding, again, of what I've been through, or have done their work toward having an open heart. The ability to give and receive love, ultimately, for me, was what it entailed. And interestingly, I lost the ring. To this day, I have no idea when. I can't even remember off the top of my head when I lost the open heart ring. And it devastated me because of the symbolism, you know, what it symbolized. And it took me a while, and it was like, well, does that mean that I don't have to do this anymore? Did I break my promise? And I hadn't, you know, I hadn't. It was just, I think, a call to test my commitment to myself. And it was also a commitment to God, that I would focus on God and my relationship with God, strengthen it, grow it. And at the same time, that open heart was also to like give and receive love from God, but more than that, to receive it. And when I realized that it was more of a test to that commitment, it was like, well, do you need the ring in order to remind you to have an open heart? And it was a beautiful feeling, because I realized I didn't. I actually was living out this promise, and I didn't need the reminder anymore. So that was kind of interesting revelation, where I purchased the ring thinking I don't ever have to get rid of it. And it ended up being that I lost it, and really I didn't need it.
Yeah.
And to follow up, because I keep looking at it, I have a new ring, because I felt I wanted to recommit myself
Interesting.
to this promise, to a new promise, if you will, or really just at the time, I think it was more of a recommitment to as a promise to myself. And it was time to turn it up a notch, where this ring actually has infinity signs instead of the open heart collection. Um, and to me, it was like, this is forever.
Mhm.
This is for eternity because it's self-love. It's never going to stop. That's not ever the goal. Having an open heart, I always want to have an open heart posture.
Mhm.
But to your point, with a little protection, I always want to keep my lines of communication and love for me and between God and I.
Absolutely.
Um, so even if I lost this ring, the point, I think the commitment is made that um, this is not something that was going to be temporary. And more than the material ring, it was the commitment that I made and sticking to it. So
Mm.
um, it's not easy to have an open heart these days. Like you said, it's it can get scary because you don't want to get hurt. You don't want to, risk doing all this work and feeling like you just lost so much.
Mhm.
And where I am today, and I'm curious to hear where you are today based off of your experience then to where you've committed to the, open heart gate. I believe that I've committed to, having this open heart even if I get hurt again. I've never been okay with that. Like, I'm going to get hurt and I'm not going to, like, I'm going to close off. I actually believe that in spite of any pain or disappointments, that's inevitable in life. Nothing's guaranteed. I actually believe that that is my goal is to just remain open hearted, remain self loving, remain loving. Um, with that open heart posture.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's beautiful. Um, I have so many thoughts on what you said, but I will say, for myself, I I think growing up, I've always struggled with self-love as a Black woman, as a Black child, a Black young girl, into teenage years, into early adulthood, and I'm fairly certain that is why I attracted the relationship, that I did,
Mm,
because it was meant to teach me about me, you know. Self-love to me is a very elusive
mm-hmm.
phrase because sometimes you think you've got it and then life
And
tests
then,
you. And you're like, wait a minute, hold up, dude, because why not let that happen? Right? So um what I've learned, up until this point is that you don't have, love doesn't have to equal pain.
mm,
Um,
no.
I was used to a lot of pain all the time, a lot of suffering, a lot of pain,
Mm,
that I was inflicting on myself,
mm-hmm,
and that I allowed others to inflict on
mm-hmm,
me. Always being open, because
mm-hmm.
I actually thought that was also a part of being a good Christian.
Mm,
Yeah.
okay.
Suffering.
Suffering
I'm so very serious. You know
and
how I grew up,
struggling
suffering and
and
struggling, and
struggling.
you know,
Mm,
um, so with those type of thought processes, reinforcing, sometimes, and I'll be honest, self-loathing, self-hatred when
mm,
I was younger, that didn't help. I
mm-hmm,
didn't understand that some of those tapes were running, um, in the background. And that was a lot of the work that I did. I want to say from teenage years on up until this, point where, what they're doing today, we've talked
Mm.
about this, right? We've been doing the work a long time.
Oh
And
yeah.
you know, we've been journaling, we've been connecting with each other, and
Mhm.
that was huge, getting another person's point of view and connecting with somebody who's safe. We didn't know that we were creating a safe space with each other for all these years,
Mhm.
but we were, and always inviting God into the process and praying and
Absolutely.
asking, what do I work on next? And really giving it that full attention. But at the end of the day, I understand that self-protection is going to allow me, when I decide to, when I close my heart gate, self-protection, right? Um,
Mhm.
is not always from, let's say, the pain, you know. Um, it, how do I say this? I think that the self-protection is sometimes just about, does this person even belong in this space,
Mhm.
right?
Absolutely.
Sometimes we our boundaries are too loose, right? Because if you don't love yourself enough, then I mean, whatever you can receive, whatever you can get.
Yeah.
And that's not a good look. And I'm not saying,
No.
like all over the place like
No.
that.
No.
You know what I mean? Like you I hate to say it like this, but you pick until you pick shit. You remember that saying back in the day, right? You think you're doing something, but at the end of the day, maybe who you opened your heart up to, or who I may have opened my heart up to, that wasn't the person to do it. They're somebody that I should have had stronger boundaries with. They were somebody that I shouldn't have allowed in my space. They didn't have a right to be there, right?
Mm.
So, what I've learned is that opening and closing your heart gate is less about closing it off to pain, but making sure that the right person is there, in that space with you, to exchange love, to give and to
Mm.
receive, to open and to close, because people are going to hurt you. One of
Mhm.
you know this. One of the biggest things that I had a hard time with, and I want to say over the past few years, was how I hurt people. You know, right? Yeah. So it's like we coming to that realization, like, man, I could give it out as well. I'm talking about what this person did, and it's like, yeah,
Mhm.
but you also were hurting people too, you know?
Mhm.
And so
Yeah.
I'm not gonna get all into, the trauma stuff, but this is a huge part what we're talking about.
Mhm.
With trauma, they're ruptured boundaries that everybody has. A lot
Mhm.
of people have these ruptured boundaries. And so it's like having a sore and never being treated, and somebody like just grazes it, and you're like, right? So people are so touchy today. That's why,
Mhm.
you know, um, traumatized, do not
Yep.
have, let's say, good boundaries of the heart. They think they know how to self-protect. They think they know what self-love is. But like I said, I do feel like self-love is, I feel like it eludes a lot of people, and it may not always be what we think it is. And I love the way you described it with like the infinity sign. Like I love, like, you're on that journey forever. It's not a place where you just stop and self-love. No, this is constant. Yeah.
Mhm.
Constant, as we say in somatic experiencing, renegotiation. You're renegotiating with yourself
Mhm.
because you're changing, you're growing, you're learning, and you got to start loving new parts of yourself,
Mhm.
right? So, yeah, I mean, where I'm at today is I'm still learning.
Mhm.
That's where I'm at. I'm still learning. Even what I'm saying now, I allow myself, I want to say the space and the grace to expand on that, to have a deeper understanding of it and to experience it with someone. Because that, like when we think about even our friendship, right? You know, not to, get like deeply into that, I know that it's a part of my heart expansion. I'm
Mm,
clear, you know? So I learned so much, and you were one of the people that actually helped me to see myself,
mm,
right? And so without you, I wouldn't be able to love myself the way that I do. So thank you.
wow, that's powerful. Thank you. You're welcome.
Yeah.
But thank you.
That's right. Receive that.
Yeah, receive it, right? You're welcome.
Yes. Yes.
Um, and thank you. Again, that open heart allows that giving and receiving, and that's something that I think we've struggled with. Not just in friendship, but in relationships. Um, you know, it's interesting that you say I helped you in that way. Where our friendship and where you've helped me, although you're, wide open heart, may have, created some obstacles and pain. I think that my closed heart did just the same. Um, and I think what you've helped me grow and expand in is the ability to love others open heartedly
Mhm.
and to be kinder to others. Um, and as I went on my journey of self love and self care and it was easier for me to like self care, for example. I'm very big on self care, always have been since I can remember. And as far as the self love, I think I would give credit to like my father probably for that because growing up, I was with him a lot and I knew he loved me a lot. And I want to say, probably trained me up to love myself.
Mm.
So I
Dads are
think it comes,
important. I just
hmm?
want to say that dads are important. Go ahead.
Dads are, my passion is fatherhood engagement. Dad being in their father's lives is huge to me. It is part of my work at on my job is fighting and advocating. I would rather say advocating for fatherhood engagement and having fathers
Mhm.
be a part of the child's life. And I actually work in child welfare. And to my personal experience, it was my father who actually not only engaged me growing up, but also that eventually got me out of foster care.
Mm.
So, yes, fathers are very important, and I'm very passionate about that. Um, and that is again where some of my self-love probably came from. I too struggled with self-love, and you will attract someone who will potentially not love you, kind of like they'll meet you where you are with yourself. And I definitely crossed paths with people who did just that. But I think that what, you mentioned earlier about how I've hurt people, I very early on hurt people, myself, specifically in relationship. I'll talk about that kind of hurt where yes, I've been hurt but I know what it feels like to hurt someone. Um and for me I didn't realize that I didn't have self-love or that at the very least I questioned my worth if not the self because I think my father instilled that enough. But
Mhm.
I think there was a worthiness aspect to it where I didn't feel maybe worthy of love from others. So I could love myself all I want. That's the easy, for me at least, it was easier to self love.
Mhm.
And you see, I'm doing this, but what about the outgoing? Because the outgoing is how I hurt someone because I didn't understand, that incoming love. So when I was kind of putting it back out, it wasn't translating. I was, as you say, translating the pain and maybe calculating love being pain, and it didn't equal pain. It could be or because of pain, or can be caused by loving too much, as you say, or too openly, um, sometimes. But I think that um, I underestimated my ability to hurt others. And I think that on this quest of not hurting others, once I realized, oh, wow, I could really do some damage here, I flipped it and went completely extreme to this open heart, love, be nice, be kind. And I think that that's where you came in my life and taught me to be a lot kinder, not just to others, but to myself, but really to really take into consideration, after I've hurt someone, now I'm like, okay, how can I be a nicer person and have, soften my heart to people? And it went the other extreme. And now I'm too nice and I'm too open
That's a
and I'm
thing.
too committed and I'm
That is
too,
a thing.
I don't, for example, you want to commit to a relationship, you committed till the person's got you down on, down and out, rock bottom, and you're
Girl.
not even realizing, like, where's your self-love? Where's yourself? Get yourself up, girl. And that kind of what got me on this journey of, and so to your point earlier, where that balance there. And it's like, well, yes, you need to have, you know, um, this self-love. And yes, you want to have this love overflowing in abundance for others, but there has to be a balance where you're not giving all your love away. And then now you're not giving it to yourself. And so this journey of open heart was also learning the balance between self-love and loving others. And I have to give you the credit and say thank you to you for expanding my heart through this journey. And really at the beginning of this journey, where it allowed me to open up and soften my heart in a way that I probably never had, because it wasn't safe. But I think not just the self-love, but, building up that worthiness for me was what was key, because it was like, you are worthy of the love that you give out. So don't not give it out and you will receive it. So there's that, again, that gate that you speak of. So there's something about that I think really has aided my journey, where I believe, like I said, now I can be open-hearted with the knowledge that the pain potentially can come, and not feel that I have to harden again.
Yes.
So again, you've helped me be more soft-hearted, loving, and kind towards those who unfortunately may inevitably hurt me. And what I kind of look at that as is like, I'm being true to who I am.
Exactly.
Because true to my nature is to love.
That's
and
right.
be loved.
That's right.
I'm looking at a cup of water here. I will fill up my cup
Yes.
with my self-love.
Yes.
And I just want to overflow and just go out and share all that with others.
Yes.
To your point, you can't not do that with everyone, but I think that I have learned, like you said, through our relationship, and I have very great close friends that I do believe has taught me and grown me in knowing who and where to share and express that love, and having that discernment, as you've said, to know when to open and close that gate, because I can be in the midst of a safe space, as you called it, where I am able to give that love openly and have an open heart. Something may happen where I have to kind of, close that gate off because it's not safe anymore. And the difference now versus before is whether I have to open or close it, it doesn't negate my worthiness. It doesn't negate my self-love. It doesn't negate my ability to love. Because just as quick as the switch is, it's that simple, you know. And I like your word, it is healthy. It's healthier. It's boundaries and knowing when to stand on your boundaries and not, one of the things that comes up is not self, what do they call it? Approval. When you're, it's
Validation.
no, I'm drawing a blank. When you're people pleasing.
People pleasing. Okay.
People pleasing. I want to make everybody happy because I'm happy and it's so good to be happy. And there's times when it's like you have to set boundaries lovingly, open-heartedly.
Yep.
Because you have to take care of yourself. And there's times when you cannot give and people please if it's going up against the boundary. And I have learned to be okay with that. That was my boundary. I stand on it because I love myself, because I am worthy of this boundary. And that does not negate the love that I deserve. That does not negate, this. It doesn't mean that I have to be hard-hearted. It means that I am just setting a boundary. That is what I stand on, and I'm not backing off to please you or to appease you, because then I'm not being authentic and true to myself, and that to me is not self-loving. So that self-love is stronger, and I like you and probably still a student, because really what will challenge that is engagement. Engaging and communicating and mingling with others, whether it's friends, colleagues, coworkers, and I am often challenged every turn because it's a test. How firm is your boundaries? How committed are you to your promise to yourself and to others? Because I promised I wouldn't hurt others.
Yeah.
Not on purpose anyway.
Not on purpose.
And I think, it's one of those things where if I hurt, if they hurt, that doesn't change my worthiness. It doesn't change my heart. It doesn't change my self-love. So, I think like you, I'm still a student in that, those things will be challenged, and they have been. Yeah. And it has had its moments where I want to go back to the hard heart and you see what I'm doing. I'm closing it up. I'm locking. Don't come over here. This is out of order. And it's like, no.
Sometimes, you've got to keep your gate closed a little bit longer than you did, previously.
Yeah, that swinging it open and closed is probably not wise. This is why I have you in my life, you see. You're like,
yeah.
Is your gate locked? Is it? As long as you need technical assistance here?
Yes. Sometimes you have to do that. And, oh man, like what you said is so accurate. With when people come in, it tests this, right? Especially people that you're really close to, or somebody that means a lot to you, like a child or a best friend or, a family member or whatever, sometimes it's really hard to set those boundaries. And one of the things that I've learned is that it's a protection for me and it's also a protection for you,
Absolutely.
right? So, setting boundaries is a good thing. It doesn't always feel good to do it. Um, and sometimes it's necessary and um, you have to confront. And if you're not a confrontational person and you're like all love, you know what I'm saying? You don't want to do that, but you have to. You have to sometimes. And I think,
Mhm.
whew, like that's a statement, you bump into so many different kinds of people. One of the things I did want to say was that when you are in this process and you are learning, how to love yourself and always staying curious to
Mhm.
this, it's naturally going to pour over to people around you. They may not
Yeah.
know what's going on, right?
Yeah.
Naturally happens, you know, um, where you bump into a stranger or
Mhm.
um, a coworker that's always grumpy. Why are they so
Mhm.
happy when they around you? Well, I don't know. you know um I think that is a part of, you spoke about authenticity, right? And when you show up in the world like that, especially
Mhm.
today, just being who you are and at least trying to be in that space is so important. Like people, they need to see it.
Mhm.
There was one young lady at my job. She's young, maybe about like 10, 12 years younger than me. And she used to just come by the office and she'd be like, Sharmy, can I just get a hug?
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? So, oh, you don't know, we speak about this all the time. You don't know
Mhm.
how you affect people. You know what I'm saying? And vice versa. Sometimes they don't realize how they affect you. We all affect
Mhm.
each other. It's like, well, what are you bringing to the table though? Right? I think the way society is set up today, they want to know what you could do for them. Well, it's not really, and I know there's like a slogan, it's not really what this person can do for you. It's what you can do to be a light in a world where it is pretty dim. I'll say that, because we need more people, you know, shining their light. We need more people, at least, exuding that type of love, um, where even if they're not directly involved with you, just their presence, them being there changes, it shifts the energy in the room. We talk about,
Mhm.
oh, I felt the energy this person brought. Well, what kind of energy are you bringing, my dear? Right? That's something I ask myself because I also realize that, I'm a powerful person too. If I'm not in a good mood, I can shift the room as well, you know? So that's why it is, I think important to stay curious and keep checking in with yourself. The self-care like you're talking about, you are great at that. And the self-kindness, for me, I like using that word because the word nice, I've been called nice so many times, and I'm like, nice is good, but you sometimes that means that, you know what, I'm not even going to get into the connotation of it. Sometimes it's not always good to be called nice. I feel like it's better to be called kind because I feel like you have uh boundaries, you have good
Mhm.
boundaries, and you're 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 basically showing people kindness. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So it's not a nicety, like you're doing something because you have to. You're doing it because you want to. you know. So
Mm-hmm.
self-kindness for me is important. I'm doing this because I want to do it for myself, not because I have to do it for myself. So yeah, I kind of digressed a little bit, but um yeah, I that this journey is, I don't know, I'm just gonna stay open and curious to it. And I pray and I truly hope that others do the same because like I said, we need more people out here shining their light, you know, like Teresa, you know. Um, we definitely need that because a lot of people are just hurting. It's not that they don't have a light to shine. They're in pain. And sometimes when you're in pain, you just don't know what to do with that, you know? But when someone else shines a light, it shows you, I think it can give hope. I'll say that.
Mm-hmm.
It can give hope for something better in your future for you.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah,
So where are we at on our time?
we are at time.
Are we now? Okay.
We are.
All
We are
right.
at time.
All right.
So, um, I think it's interesting because, like, as you say, shine your light. Every few, you're in your background.
Oh, there's a glimmer, right?
There's like this shine. Yeah, like behind you. There's like rays coming in, and it's
Yes.
very. It's hard for me. You know me. I couldn't
Yes.
ignore it. So I will say, you know, that it's similar to that that's coming in. It's like uh you said hope. It's like what is the phrase? I keep losing my phrases here. Um like light at the end of the tunnel.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
like um even in this, you said dim world, right? Um there is light. There is always going to be hope. You just have to really have, I think for me personally, I've always had people around me that encouraged me and have always had a way of building me up when I was at my down or my low points. Um, and in a sense, you described being the light, and you said like you, like, and it's like, yeah, um, I've always felt that I was a hopeful person. And so I've always wanted to give out that hope, to others, when they're feeling down or in dark spaces. I've always wanted to be that person to come in and shine light on, to give a glimmer of hope for better things and for more. So, and I do agree that, we all have light within us to shine. And, some light are brighter than others. And, I've always kind of, in a way, believed myself to be like a lighthouse.
Mhm.
So it's not like I'm some savior or my light is special in that way. It's more so a guidance, like ability to, you know, be in, like you said, what are you bringing to really the world? What are you bringing to the world? Not a table. When you show up in the world, what you say, you ask yourself, Teresa, I ask myself, what are you bringing to the world? When you think of, what you want to provide and bring, what is it? And I don't know when or how I figured it out, but it was always a hope. I'm a dreamer. So, I'm going to have that vision for someone. I'm going to give them a different perspective on their situation where, it does shine that light and that glimmer of hope for something different or better. Um, and that, being a lighthouse is, you don't always go out. A lighthouse kind of stays where it's at. It's
Be
it's
me.
the people.
I
What'd you say?
said that be me. I'm the one that goes out.
Yeah. Okay. See? So, I tend to kind of just kind of, I'm there. I mean, I'll go out, but generally I think people kind of come to me in the, like say in the midst of the storm,
Mm,
and they they're usually looking, for shelter. When you're out at sea, you're looking for calmer waters, you're looking for shelter, you're looking for guidance, you're looking. And I think that in my life to this point, I've provided those things, shelter, more than I even remember. I've provided, guidance. And to your point, that light. And for you, you go out and provide that light. You seek out who to provide light to. And really it's in a world that you say is dim, um, it's a blessing to be considered someone to be the go-to for the hug. It's
yes.
a blessing to be the person that people call on in, let's say, they dark hour or dark times, that they know they can depend on just one person. And so I agree, if we all kind of ask ourselves day after day, how do I want to show up in the world? And we all have light. So that means that we all could go out every day and help someone, support someone, guide someone. We all have gifts and talents. It's just how we want to put them out into the world. And I think one of the things I would end with is respecting each other's light, respecting each other's gifts and talents. And, you know, um, when we come together,
Mhm.
using them for the greater good as your light kind of shines down in your shoulder, really taking that, putting it together and creating a world and a community that it feels safe in such a dim world. Not everywhere is going to be safe. Not everybody's going to want to shine their light. But for those who have that passion and that love to give, open hearted, um, I just think it would create a world that feels safer,
Mhm.
and that safe and security will come from open hearts,
Mhm.
loving ourselves,
Mhm.
sharing that love with others,
Mhm.
finding our own inner light, shining that light out, and again respecting each other's space in this world. And yeah, that's
That's
where I'll
that's what you
end it on my side here.
So, what I love about, what you said is, it's always that yin yang aspect. I know I said it earlier, today
Hmm.
because we've spoken about it before in the past. Like I'm that person that, I'm going out into the storm. I'm going to meet you where you at. You know what I'm saying? Your boat's drowning.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna get in there with you. Let's go. Um, because I feel like my job is to be a light, but to also in a dark or dim space, but to
Hmm.
also help you see your light and turn that
Amen.
all the way up,
Absolutely.
all the way,
All the way up.
all the way up.
All the way up.
Right.
That needs to be said out
Exactly.
all the way up for
All the way
everybody in
up.
the back.
Okay.
Turn up the light.
Yes. So, that's what I'm here for, and, even with just the two of us, it's so complimentary, when it comes to working with people, because that is my ultimate goal. I want them to feel safe within themselves. I want them to love themselves. I want them to be able to see the light or the gems that they have inside themselves. Yeah. I want them to
Powerful.
be able to connect with their ancestors. I want them to be able to connect with God. I want them to be able to take full advantage of all the resources that they
Hmm.
internally have so that they can go and shine that light out, you know? And I love, you know, the whole lighthouse thing, because the lighthouse is encouraging you and helping you, guiding you back to shore, you know, where you belong, safe haven out of the storm, right? And when we talk about storms, that we're just talking about the storms of life, you
Mhm.
know, because life can take some of the most brightest people with light wise,
Mhm.
right? People with the biggest hearts,
Mhm.
and it will change you in such a way that you forget who you are and
Mhm.
refuse to show the world your light. And I
Mhm.
know because I've been there, you know.
Mhm.
Um, but no more of that, you know. It's definitely, it's we're just at a great space and time, no matter how chaotic it may seem. Um, we're at a space to heal. And that's what this is all about. You got to heal to turn that light all the way up. So on
And
that,
open that heart all
yes,
the
and
way
open
up,
that heart, of course, girl.
all the way up,
Yes, all the way up.
all the way up.
So, you know, one thing that we didn't talk about, and maybe we could talk about it next time, is we talked about pain. But what about receiving joy in your heart?
Ooh.
Yeah. Ah, all right.
So
So,
next episode,
next episode.
Joy.
And I know you love that
Joy.
subject.
You know, I love to talk about happiness and joy and
Yes,
yeah,
and love, yes.
and love. So yes, we can talk about joy next time.
All right. All
All
right.
right.
Well, we don't have no
Love
time.
you.
Love you too.
That was an open heart. Open gate.
Open gate, open gate. We're leaving
We'll
y'all
see
with
you
an
guys
open
next
gate.
time.
Okay?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
leaving you
Receive
open,
all that.
open gate. All that. And the light. Oh, oh,
The lights
eh,
all the way up. Hold up.
all the way up.
All right. Bye.